Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Computer Science Classes by Nikhil Srivastava. So in this video we will study about what are inline functions. So before trying to understand what are inline functions, let us first of all understand the need behind inline functions. So if you observe this particular piece of code, there is one function. What is the name of this function? The name of this function is the max function. Okay, this is the max function, and now this is my main function. And inside the max function, inside the main function, I am giving a call to the max function. Over here also inside the main function, I am giving a call to the max function like this. Alright, it is something like this. Now, the problem with this type of code is that inside the main function, a call is being made to the max function. So, main and max function have different scopes. So, it is something like this. Suppose this is your main function and this is your max function. So, you know, it is main function is giving a call to this max function, and then it is passing some argument. Say suppose whatever it may be, suppose argument, it is passing two argument of which it needs to find the maximum. Say suppose the arguments are 10 and 20. Okay, so suppose in main function I have some particular pieces of code. Suppose this is the first line of code, this is the second line of code, and this is the third line of code, and then I make a call to max function over here, and then again there is a fourth line of code, fifth line of code, sixth line of code. It is going on like this. So the problem with this is that it executes these three line of code, then you know it has to make a call to this max function. So when it needs to call this max function, this main function needs to preserve its current state. This state it needs to preserve, and then this max function is executed, and when this max function is executed, then again my main function resume its working from line number 4. So it needs to save its state in some kind of, you know, registers. It needs to save its space. So this is a very it is not a cheap operation, it is a very costly operation. So always remember that when you call functions, it is a costly operations. So by using inline functions, we basically want to minimize the cost of function calls. So I can do something like this. I can precede this function max with the keyword inline. What keyword? The inline keyword. Now when I precede this function declaration with the keyword inline, then what is gonna happen is that a call to this function will not be made. A call to this function will not be made. Instead, this function will be expanded inline. Okay, what does this mean? This means when you are calling max 10, 5, and inside this max function you're writing something like this. So call to max function will not be done. What will happen over here is that it will, in place of cout max 10, 5, it will write something like this. It will write 10 greater than 5 scope, and then a question mark, and then 10, 5. It is going to write like this. See, it is going to write like this. Similarly, in this case, when I am calling max 3, 40, then it is not going to call the max function. It is going to expand its definition inline, and here it will write 3, and here it will write 40, here it will write 3, and then 40. So that means this function is expanded. It is not called. So we saw in this, when I was telling you, we saw because calling a function in different scope is a costly operation. It involves a lot of overheads. So in order, if we want to minimize those overheads, we can make a function inline. And how do we make a function inline? By preceding the declaration, by preceding the function with the keyword inline. Okay. So when you make a function inline, it is not called. Its definition is expanded in the code itself. So because inline functions are expanded in the code, generally the practice that we follow is that inline functions should be very small, because if there are big functions, then your code will become very big. See, if this max function had suppose 200 line of codes, and I need to call this max function suppose 10 times. So my code will become 200 into 10, that means 2000 times. So generally inline functions are meant for very small functions. We make inline functions for very small functions. Let us now go to the my PowerPoint presentation, and inside this PowerPoint presentation I'm going to view it, and then let us try to understand inline functions. So inline functions causes a function to be expanded inline rather than called. Inline is just a request to the compiler and not a command, and the compiler can choose to ignore it. You know, this second point is very important. When you make a function inline, it is not a guarantee that the function will be expanded inline in your code. You are just suggesting the compiler, you are just telling the compiler, please make this function inline. For example, I give a layman example. Suppose you have a girlfriend and you ask the girlfriend, will you marry me? Then it is the decision of the girlfriend. She may accept, she may reject also. Similarly over here also, if I want to make this function inline, then it is the decision of the compiler. It can either choose to make this function inline and it will expand your code, expand the function definition in your code, or it can choose that this function will not be expanded inline. Generally the practice that we follow is that we never make recursive function inline. Okay, like this. And to create inline function, precede the function declaration with the keyword inline. So that we have done. And functions defined within the class automatically become inline. See this point, it is very important. So how can we understand this point? Let us try to understand with this with an example. So suppose I just remove it. This we have already seen, and I'm going to remove this also. Now what I do is that all right, okay, I have included it twice. All right, no problem. Suppose I create a class and the name of my class is suppose I will take now the student class, and student has a serial ID and it has a name. Okay, so these two variables, these are the private member variables of the class. And then I can create a constructor of the class. How will I create the constructor of the class? Like this. What is the name of the class? It is student. And then I can write integer SID comma string name. All right, like this. And then because the names of the instance variable and the local variable are same, I will use this pointer, this arrow SID equal to SID, and this arrow name equal to, I can write like this, and I will end my class over here. Now I create a member function of the class, void display student. So I have two options. I have two options. Either I can just declare this, I can just declare this class inside. I can just declare this function, display student function, inside the class. Which class? Student class. And then I can define this class outside the student class. How will I do it? I will do it something like this. I have written as a side note, when we define a function outside the class, we define a function outside the class using the format return type, class name, scope resolution operator, then the function name, and then followed by the argument list. So over here, if you observe the display student method, what is the return type? It is void. What is the name of the class? It is student. And then I will use the scope resolution operator, then the name of the function, and then the argument list. This function is, it is not taking any argument. So over here I am giving the definition of the display student function. So I can write something like this. What I can write? The SID of the student is, suppose SID, and then a new line marker. And then I will copy this code, I will paste this code, and then I can write the name of the student is, okay, name. I can write something like this. So over here, if you just observe, I have created the display student method, instance method of the student class. I have declared it inside the class, and then I have defined it outside the class. And how do you define it outside the class? You define it outside the class by first giving the return type. Over here the return type is void. Then you give the class name. Over here the class name is student. Then you give the scope resolution operator, and then you give the name of the function followed by the argument list itself. So here, if you just go and create an object of the student class, student, suppose S1 object, suppose it has an ID of 1 and it has the name Madhav, okay. Then I can call S1 dot display student. I can call something like this. All right. Yeah. Now if I go and run this program, clean and build, and then I run this program. Okay, this ID of the student is 1 and the name of the student is Madhav. So with this, I just wanted to bring to this point that instance method, we have two options. We can either define the function inside the class, or we can either define the function outside the class. And over here I have chosen the second approach. I have defined the instance function outside the class. And how I have defined it? By using this format. Which format? Return type, class name, scope resolution operator, function name followed by the argument list. Okay, now this much is clear. But now you just move to this point. Now we come to this point that function defined within a class automatically become inline. Functions defined within a class automatically become inline. What does this mean? What does this particular piece of line means? See, if I comment out, if I want to make the display student inline, then I have to do something like this. All right, I have to do something like this. I have to precede the student declaration, display student definition with the keyword. Which keyword? The inline keyword. In order to make this function inline, I can do something like this. So this display student will become inline, and once it has become inline, that means when I call the s1.displayStudent method, then the compiler can choose to expand this function inline. And if it chooses to expand the function inline, what will happen over here? It will happen something like this. Something like this is gonna happen. What? Like this. If I just I'm not going to compile it, I'll just comment it out so that you can just have a look at it. The ID of the student is 1 and the name of the student is Madhava. Okay, so this is expanded inline. So when I make when I make a call to the display student method, because display student is inline, it is expanded. Whatever is written in display student method is expanded inline over in my code. So this is just in order to make you understand inline functions. But now what I do is that, suppose I just go and I comment out this code. I do not want to I do not want to define display student method outside the class. Instead, I will define this method just inside my class. So how will I do it? This is what I've been normally doing it, I've been doing it till now. So I can write something like this, and then like this. All right, this is it. So over here, this display student, I have declared and defined it within the class itself. Which class? The student class. The display student is now defined within the student class. So if you go to this presentation, functions defined within the class automatically become inline. So that means this display student method, I do not have to precede its declaration with inline keyword. It is automatically inline. When I define the function outside the class, then I need, in order to make the function inline, I need to precede its definition with the inline keyword. But that I do not have to do with the function when the function is it is defined within the class. So this display student is automatically inline. and you just keep this thing in your mind that inline keyword is just a suggestion to the compiler, that you just please make this function inline and expand its code whenever a call to this function is made. It is just a suggestion. The compiler may choose to accept it, or the compiler may choose to reject it. Okay, thank you. So with this we will end our discussion of inline functions. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and do keep on watching my videos, and also keep on subscribing my videos, and please share my videos to all of your friends. Thank you.